The Yankees finally add Cody Bellinger via trade. What's next for Corbin Burnes and Alex Bregman? That and more next here at The Upside. The New York Yankees have finally added Cody Bellinger in a trade with the Chicago Cubs. Cubs ultimately deciding to eat $5 million of that deal. Yankees essentially taking the majority of that contract. This is a deal that was, for the most part, agreed to with the players and so forth days in advance. It was just the Yankees trying to convince the Cubs to take some of this money. They get a nominal number here in $5 million to say, hey, at least we got them to bend a little bit. But by and large, the Yankees ultimately are going to pay the full freight here for Cody Bellinger. Good deal, though, for them. They needed to add a significant bat to that lineup. This is the first impact bat they have made this offseason. They've acquired this offseason after losing Juan Soto in free agency. Now, don't get me wrong, the New York Yankees have done a great job in the offseason so far. Even with losing their second best player, they have rebounded nicely, bringing in Max Fried, whose deal became official as well. 8 years, $218 million for him. They make the trade for Devin Williams to secure their ninth inning job. Great addition there. Now this is the first addition that they've made to that lineup, and they are not done. Sources say they are projected to go after Alex Bregman next. Now I know New York Yankees fans anyway have said over the last couple of weeks how the Bregman swing doesn't really fit in New York. I get it. You prefer a left-handed hitter, but Bregman is still one of the most professional and best hitters in the game, especially among free agents. Look at what's left on the market. There's not really much option on the right side of on the left side of the infield for you at third base. The guys that are left are going to be trade candidates in Nolan Arenado from the St. Louis Cardinals, and even at that, it's still a significant downgrade from what Alex Bregman could possibly bring you. Now, Bregman has known nothing but playoff success. He's had nothing but postseason runs every single year since he's been with the Houston Astros. So I imagine he wants to go to a competitive environment wherever he ultimately ends up. I don't think he's going to sign for the highest bidder just because they throw the most money at him. Looking at the Toronto Blue Jays, I think they're a team that could be a playoff team next year, but you wonder if 2026, if they ultimately don't make the postseason in 25, is this a team that goes through a very long rebuild process? And I wonder if the Blue Jays are the highest bidder out there, if having the highest offer for Bregman is necessarily enough to convince him to go there. Teams that are still in on Bregman are said to be the Detroit Tigers because of the A.J. Hinch connection, the Boston Red Sox, who everybody agrees would fit great with the Green Monster out there in left field, and then, of course, the Toronto Blue Jays because they need to sign somebody, a major bat for them to try to win this year. We'll see what ultimately happens here, but Bregman, I think, would be a great fit for the Yankees and continue a great offseason for them. Now, there's still work for them to do. I still think it's a work in progress for all of these teams. But with that being said, the Yankees need to improve that offense, and they get step one done by bringing in Cody Bellinger. The other side of the trade, the Cubs get off of roughly $50-ish million of that Bregman deal. Sources say today, according to John Paul Morosi, that they're going to pivot to relief arms. The long belief is that they're going to try to bring in Jesus Luzardo in the trade market to solidify their rotation. Tells me they're not going to spend on a free agent starter. I thought all along they were going to make some additions to this offense, but it looks like bullpen might be where they spend the money that they save on Bellinger. Now, I'm sure they'd love to get off the contract of Seiya Suzuki. I don't see a way in which they can get off of that money without retaining about half of that salary or more. So ultimately, I think he's going to start the season with the Cubs. But good return here for the Cubs. They only have to include $5 million and still get a nice piece back in return. What do you guys give the trade here for Bellinger going to the Yankees? For the Yankees side of this, I give this one probably a B+. Primarily because they tried to get the Cubs to eat more money on that Bellinger deal. It is a little bit lopsided financially, and for that reason, I give it a B+. But we're talking about the Yankees. They can absorb the money. Not that you want to say anybody should pay more for the same burger, at a restaurant, but the Yankees can afford it more than, say, another team like the Pittsburgh Pirates. They can take on that big salary and afford that big cost for an impact player like Cody Bellinger. But for me, I give this one a B+ for the New York Yankees. On the Cubs side of things, they get off of the majority of the Cody Bellinger deal, but for me, they still need to add to that lineup. Losing Isaac Paredes is going to hurt. Now you lose Bellinger. You've already brought in Kyle Tucker, but they still have more work to do. Yankees, for me, still a B plus. The Cubs, it's going to depend on what they do with the money that they're saving on Bellinger. Are they going to split it up between a reliever and a hitter? I would like that. If they just go after relievers, I'd say their lineup is a little bit more deficient than it was 24 hours ago, and I'd say they have more work to do. I'd say the trade for Kyle Tucker looks great for 25, but what does it look like long term in 26, 27, 28 if he doesn't re-sign there? But welcome in, everybody. Got about 45, 50 of you guys with us right now. Say hello in the chat. Hit that like and subscribe if you're new here. We really do appreciate you guys joining us. Welcome in, Lucas. Welcome in, Mike. Appreciate you guys joining us. But I kind of agree with you there, Mike. It is a B for me, pretty much all the way around. Cubs, for me, I'd say it's a work in progress, but I'd say getting out from the money of Bellinger at the very least solidifies them a B minus, but it's going to hinge still upon what they do with the money that they save. This is a team that, split apart their championship team, that ended the curse, all those kinds of things, sending out Schwarber, Baez, Bryant. Pretty much nothing is left of that core Cubs group, and now this is the next iteration of a contending team, they hope. Dansby Swanson was the first piece they really brought in. They got some good young players there, but I wonder if they're going to have some regression from players like Bush, who hit 30 points higher as far as average from what he was expected to. I wonder if we're going to see a little bit of a sophomore slump for him. And an offense that was already 29th in baseball last year, at least at home anyway, still has work to do. Losing Cody Bellinger, one of their best offensive weapons here, is not going to help matters. Now, Kyle Tucker certainly is going to raise the floor of that team. I think they're going to perform better overall, but there's still more work to be done, and I don't think they're done adding pieces, but we'll see where they go. Welcome in, New York Giants preservation. Society's signing Adamas, signing not enough. I guess you're saying the Giants anyway. Need a big-time starter, lefty stick, who doesn't K often, have total faith in Buster but getting antsy. I hear you there. As far as the Giants go, they already made a great signing here with Willy Adames. This is not your same, San Francisco Giants that we saw under Farhan Zaidi. Interesting interview about to take place on Foul Territory with him, but he's a guy, in Zaidi that was not able to get the top-level free agent to agree to a contract with the Giants for whatever reason. Whether the money was just not acceptable to them, they didn't think they could contend in the division. They were always the bridesmaid, never the team that got the guy they were shooting for in free agency. They always ended up after, the major free agents go off the board as, hey, we still have money out there. You want to sign here for 1 year plus an option, rebuild your value, show you're healthy. We'll sign you here and it'll be our, win of the offseason. We'll take the risk on a trade for a Robbie Ray, take on the money from the Mariners, and just see if we can make it work out. They're the team that they had to take risks in order to get what they wanted to across the finish line. Now with Buster Posey in his first offseason, in his first winter meetings, gets Willy Adames before they even get to the meetings. Great signing for them, gives them some solidification in that lineup. Somebody that they will know will be there every single day. Somebody that actually, you can count on in that lineup to produce for you. They haven't had a stick like that in the lineup pretty much since Buster Posey retired. They haven't had a power stick in that lineup since Barry Bonds retired. So I still think it's a work in progress offensively, but this is a great first step for them. I do think they're going to add a left-handed first baseman. We'll see which direction they go. I think a guy like Goldschmidt could be a guy that fits there for them at first base. I think they're still in there for Burnes. But as we reported last night, the longer this takes for them to sign Corbin Burnes, the less and less likely it's viewed by industry sources that he's going to sign there. They're viewed as the favorite right now, but is the hemming and hawing allowing these other teams to get in the fray? For instance, the Boston Red Sox have been in and out and in and out and in on his market. Do the Baltimore Orioles, after bringing in Sugano, suddenly find extra money after speaking to ownership and make a deal with him? Because remember, they're a team that is absolutely desperate for a number one starter. They have no one at the moment who qualifies as a number one in that rotation. Maybe they get in the fray. The Texas Rangers have been in the fray for players like this in the past. Remember the year they got Nathan Eovaldi? Eovaldi was still hanging around in free agency, and the Rangers have been talking to him all offseason, registering their interest constantly, saying, we'd love to have you, you're a great pitcher, we really want to bring you in, all those kinds of things. And then, Chris Young, after signing DeGrom and everybody else that offseason, goes to the ownership and says, hey, we have a real chance here to take advantage of an opportunity on the market, free up a few extra dollars, and I can get us Nathan Eovaldi. One could argue that was the single biggest impact signing that allowed the Rangers to win the World Series. Hang around long enough on the free agent market, maybe see why he's able to have those same conversations with ownership once again, free up a few extra dollars, and then you have a fantastic rotation headlined by Eovaldi, Burnes, and DeGrom, with Kumar Rocker, of course, breaking into the big leagues at the end of last year, probably taking a rotation spot as well. Welcome in, Joe. Welcome in, Jack. Do you have a sleeper trade you'd like to see? That I'd like to see? I think we'd like all to see something from the Phillies at this point. The Phillies have been so quiet this offseason. We knew when they came into the offseason they were going to shake things up. It was not like Dave Dombrowski to sit on his hands and just say, oh, well, we've fallen short twice now in the postseason. We'll see if third tries the charm. That's not Dave Dombrowski. That's not the way he operates. We all expected him to do something. And so the expectation was maybe Nick Castellanos. There wasn't a market for him, so now the conversation is pivoted to Alec Bohm. But here we are a week after the winter meetings with no movement still. And they're a team that still hasn't really shaken things up. Now, they still have bullpen holes. Maybe their shakeup is going to come in that bullpen. And that might be the easiest way to shake up that roster if they really like what they have. But we all came into the offseason expecting the Philadelphia Phillies to do something, and they have not. I think the inactivity is the more of the surprise. Now, as far as a trade itself, maybe it's the Texas Rangers, entering the fray for Corbin Burnes and then trading away a John Gray or a Nathaniel Lowe. Say Nathaniel Lowe gets traded to the Yankees, gives them another left-handed hitter, a cheaper option that solves their first base needs, and then allows them to free up more money to go after Alex Bregman. That would be a great trade, I would believe, for the Yankees, mainly because they get another left-handed hitter who profiles well in that stadium, who has a lot of power but doesn't necessarily translate it on the field. If he is given a hitting coach that gets him to be more aggressive in his swing decisions, I think his power is really going to play up in New York. And then again, the cheaper contract there at first base. Say you give Walker $20 to $23 million in free agency. Nathaniel Lowe is only going to be making about $11 million this year. So a team that was worried about money in the Bellinger trade would save a little bit with Nathaniel Lowe solving their issues at first base. They'd still be able to hold on to Rice most likely. And then, of course, they bring in Bregman. That solidifies their infield defense, gives them 3 sticks in that lineup. That would be an offseason, I would say, is an A+, even after losing Juan Soto in free agency. The Yankees would have rebounded very nicely and still give themselves flexibility for years going forward with the possibility of a Vlad Guerrero Jr. signing next year or whatever else they may want to do. But that's something I would say is kind of a sleeper trade I would like to see. Something like completely off the wall. That's what we were kind of hoping for when we get to the winter meetings. There's always those crazy trades. Like, I don't think anybody had Jimenez being traded to the Blue Jays on their radar. I don't think there are too many fans that had a Jake Burger trade on their ledger. But I'm hoping for a bigger trade here as we get closer to Christmas. Most teams like to have a good idea of what their team is going to look like by Christmas time. Doesn't mean they're going to have every free agent signed and all their holes filled and everything buttoned up. But free agents in general like to have those decisions primarily decided by then. And then, of course, there'll be, the leftovers in the market after we get through the new year. What free agents are left on the market, what teams can take advantage of players that might have missed in free agency, cost or low-cost contracts, one-year deals, rehabbing clients, those kinds of things. But as far as a sleeper trade, for me, I would like to see a Nathaniel Lowe trade to the Yankees because I think that would be the spiciest thing that we could see because that would mean more than likely the Texas Rangers are in something that we aren't expecting. That would mean the Yankees probably are looking at Bregman a little bit more seriously than we might have expected at the beginning of the offseason. Jack, there was nowhere for Belly to play. Now you can see where Shaw and PCA can. Say you can produce, and same with Bush. They need a closer. They will be easily in the playoffs. I don't disagree with what you're saying there, Jack, but I think you're overestimating the impact of some young players on that roster. Say hasn't exactly been a great piece in that lineup. Sure, you got a lot of money tied up to him. You got to hope for better, so I get the optimism there. Bush had a great first year, but he was way above expectations for what his numbers showed last year. He was 30 points above his expected batting average, and there's going to be some regression there next year. You look at Shaw, he hasn't exactly had a lot of major league experience. Same with PCA. I love both players. I think they're going to be impact players for them. But for a Cubs team that's saying they're all in on 2025, they still have more work to do in that lineup, but they do need to add that bullpen. I still think it's a B right now, but how they spend that money in the savings from Bellinger, adding a closer, adding another hitter in that lineup, I think that would really kind of raise that grade for me. But I like the trade overall, getting off of the majority of Bellinger's contract. Welcome back, Hayden. What's up? Nothing too much. Just having fun with you guys here, chatting some baseball. Just got back from watching the Freed Conference and news on Bregman. Fried finally is done with the Yankees. News on Bregman, I would say the Yankees now are at least discussing it. Still pretty much the same reports we had yesterday, but I would expect the news on Bregman to heat up over the next 2 or 3 days. Hopefully by Friday we have resolution there. For the Giants' sake, we hope we have resolution pretty much now on Corbin Burnes, but the longer this takes, the more teams are going to be in there, and who knows who ultimately gets him at that point. Lucas, how do you feel about the Texas trading for Dylan Cease? Please no. I like the situation the Rangers are in right now, but maybe if they make a trade, that would clear up some of their roster jam anyway at the middle infield spots. Say you trade Ezekiel Duran, who doesn't seem to have a spot on this roster at the moment, outside of a third depth option at shortstop, a third depth option at third base, a third option out there in left field. Capitalize on his value maybe, but Dylan Cease is going to cost more than just Ezekiel Duran, and I would rather have that depth. I would rather keep the depth that I have in his organization and spend in free agency rather than bring in Dylan Cease via trade. Now, maybe when he hits free agency, we could revisit the conversation, but I'm not a huge fan of the Rangers adding a big piece like that via trade. I'd rather add my major addition via free agency and try to tinker around the peripheries via trade. So, those types of trades have not worked great for the Rangers in the past. You think of the Cliff Lee trade. They basically got a half a year with Cliff Lee before he left in free agency to go to Philadelphia. You look at other trades that have worked in the past, say Cole Hamels. They invested 5 major pieces in that trade. Ultimately, he stayed with the Rangers for a period of time, but the Rangers never really got back to the World Series with that trade. You hamstring yourself, you short-circuit your success by making big-time trades like that, and the Rangers are in a good spot. They don't need to make a big trade, but if there's an addition that they could make in free agency, that would be more appealing to me. But welcome in, Chris. Appreciate you joining us. If you're new here, make sure you hit that like and subscribe. Will the Jays always be a joke? I don't think the Jays were necessarily a joke early on in their in this building window that they had, but the last couple of years have not gone the Jays' way. They're trying to keep that front office employed there, so they're trying to go all out for 2025. I think ultimately it's going to be a tough case for them to be able to sell free agents on signing there, especially when your best players are free agents after the year. Who knows if the front office, the team that you're going to sign the contract with, might not be there in a year from now. And so it's a tough sell to these free agents. And so, are they a joke? I wouldn't say they're a joke. That's a little strong for me. But they're in a tough spot when it comes to signing top-level free agents. I think that's part of the reason why the Jays have now pivoted to Nick Pivetta in free agency. They realize Burnes is kind of keeping them as an also-ran in this. It tells me Burnes is more likely to go to the Giants more than any other team. And while there's still teams that are in the market for him, tells me the Jays are realizing the writing on the wall that they won't be the winners for Corbin Burnes. And so they're pivoting to Nick Pivetta, Canadian-born player. Maybe they can even get him to sign to a 3-year deal and at least give them some stability to offer these free agents when they do sign there. Say, hey, even though Vladdy may leave in free agency, maybe Bichette leaves, you're still going to have some players that you're going to be teammates with for a long period of time because we're going to sign these players for a longer contract. Say Anthony Santander, they go above market value, sign him as a left fielder, bring in Nick Pivetta to a 3-4-year deal. Now you got something you can go to Bregman with and say, hey, even if we lose these guys, you're still going to have a very good team around you. Whether it's a World Series contending team, probably not, but you at least will be able to compete for a wild card. Now that's going to be important to a free agent like Alex Bregman, who's known nothing but playoff success, and he's not exactly going to be the type of player, I'd imagine, who wants to sit through a long rebuild process. So you're going to have to build out that roster, I believe, before you go and convince a Bregman. Now maybe he really wants the high dollar value here, but the highest contract that he can possibly get. Astros players have done that in the past, and I wouldn't be totally surprised by that. But for me, I think there are better solutions for the Blue Jays' problems than to do something like that. Anthony, who's the backup plan for Miami if Luzardo trade falls through with the Cubs? I don't think that one's going to fall through. I think it's just a matter of getting the compensation back from the Cubs that they want. But it sounds like Luzardo is going to get done with the Cubs. I don't think they really have a backup plan at the moment. Hayden, how about 6 years with an option for 7 for 210 for Bregman? I think 6 might be a little light, especially when you look at what Adames got. I think it's guaranteed to go at least 7 years, and I think it's going to break $200 million. So I think your initial offer there, if you're looking to bring in Bregman, is going to be 7 for 210. I think your condition there is maybe it goes to 8 if the bidding gets that high, maybe 8 for 240, 8 for 250. Anthony, in general, when you look at the Rangers, will you consider them a mid-market team that likes to spend like a big market, but in general they're mid-market? To me, they're not necessarily the biggest market. They aren't even the biggest market in Texas. Houston has that. But Houston doesn't spend like a major market team. They just don't. And, the Rangers still spend at the top levels of free agency. They have over the last 3 years. And I think they would prefer to stay under the tax. But I don't think they're going to be competing with the likes of, say, the Dodgers, the Yankees, on a year-to-year basis in the $300 to $400 million payrolls. I think they're probably going to be in the 200-ish range going forward. So if that's kind of your question or if that's your definition of a mid-market team, I'd say they're a little bit above that as far as a payroll is considered. Lucas, Nathaniel Lowe trade to Yankees has been predicted by John Heyman, so it won't be shocking. I would agree there. I mean, Heyman's been mentioning Lowe a few times as far as a first base option anyway. He mentions Walker a little bit more fervently as a likely candidate there. Heyman said the Cubs used the Jays as leverage in the Bellinger trade. Again, the Jays are pretty much desperate to get something done, something across the finish line, because again, they haven't done anything yet this offseason. So, if Bellinger was going to be signed for 2 years at $30 million, so be it. Now that might entice other free agents. Again, this is about getting them to really compete for, upper level free agency. Welcome back, VPCX, or ZX anyway. Appreciate that $2. Thank you very much. Brewers and Nationals end up where? Good question here. We don't get too many Brewers or Nationals questions. I love the way the Nationals have built up their roster. We'll start with them. Question is, what's their long-term look like for C.J. Abrams? They have some good prospects. They've got a couple guys on injury this year. So they're going to be kind of a team, in the fourth place spot in that division in a very difficult NL East. But after this year, I would expect them to spend at the upper levels of free agency. Kyle Tucker's a free agent next year. We talk a lot about the Yankees, Blue Jays, Red Sox, Giants, Dodgers and Cubs for Kyle Tucker. But they're going to be right in that same conversation. Now, they've got some really good outfield prospects. They're going to make an addition, a big-time addition to that lineup next year. Expect them to re-enter the fray. And remember, Boras really likes working with the Nationals. They've gotten some great deals done over the years, and now might be the time where they push their chips to the center again. As for the Brewers, they have a really good young position player group. They make a nice trade bringing in Nestor Cortez. I wouldn't rule out them signing him to an extension before spring training. I think he'd be a great starter for them. But this is a team that needs to soup up that rotation. They have some really good position players. They're really good, really young players, though. So they made a nice trade moving Devin Williams, a guy that they were not going to be able to re-sign in free agency. They bring in Cortez for a chance to be able to re-sign him, and it solves a position of need for them. I love the trade for them, and they get a prospect back as well. So if somebody does falter of that young position player group, they now have another piece that they can easily add to that lineup. Really like what they've done so far this offseason. Brewers are a team to kind of keep an eye on in the NL Central. Think of them as the Cleveland Guardians on the American League side. They're the NL version of that. Mike, would a Jorge Polanco trade candidate for Yankees to play second? Polanco would be a decent option, but I don't think that's exciting Yankees fans. I think they're looking bigger fish right now. If they miss on, say, Bregman and Nolan Arenado, maybe they go the Polanco route, but I think they're looking bigger fish right now. I don't think they're looking that small in the pond yet. There's some big fish that they can still bring in, and I love the trade for Cody Bellinger. It solves a lot of issues for that team. Chris, teams are hesitant with Bregman because of how quickly Springer has declined. I think those are two very different candidacies. Springer was an outfielder. They initially was a center fielder. He was going to have more wear and tear on him. You knew the decline was going to happen there. So obviously he moves to right field, and we've seen the decline. Bregman has known nothing but playoff success since he's come into the league. He's a little bit younger at the moment right now, obviously, than when Springer hit. And I like Bregman's abilities as a third baseman. I think he has the ability to play short if you need to, but the wear and tear on him at third base is not going to age his bat nearly as much as it has Springer. So I think the decline of Springer was always going to be quicker, always going to be greater. And, I just think Bregman's a better player pretty much all around than Springer is, even though Bregman has not hit his ceiling yet. I think there's more left as far as untapped potential. Maybe he reaches that with whoever he signs with next. Terry, what's next for the Yankees? The Yankees are in on first base, third base. They're still looking for an eighth inning guy as well. Chris, the Yankees still want a first baseman? Absolutely. TC, welcome back. I see the Yankees signing Carlos Santana. Could be a very low-cost option. Give them the financial flexibility after retaining or eating most of the salary there in the Bellinger trade there. to go ahead and spend a little bit on Bregman and then go cheap at first base. That could be a possibility. I think Yankees fans would like to do something a little bit different though. Ocean View, welcome back. Nobody wants to play in Toronto. I think it's primarily because of the uncertainty with Vlad Guerrero Jr., with the front office, with the manager, with Bo Bichette. If they had longer-term solutions at those spots, I think they would be a very attractive free agent destination. Just because they're in Toronto, you are the face of that franchise. You're the face of that franchise in that country. Your popularity is going to be way up here. You're going to have opportunities that not every player, that's stateside is going to have. And I just think the uncertainty with that roster right now and with that front office and management team, that's the primary reason why they haven't gotten anything across the finish line. I think they need to get some positive momentum by maybe overpaying for lower level free agents like a Pivetta or a Santander before you go back to a Bregman and say, hey, come over here and sign with us. You may be the face of our franchise next year because we won't have anything left. It'd be better to go ahead and say, hey, we've already got Santander, we've already got Pivetta. You would be the piece that would be the face of this, but now you have at least a good team around you, even if we lose those guys in free agency. Chris Bellinger is probably the center fielder. He has already been told he will be the center fielder for the Yankees. Anthony, during the offseason, what for you is the most shocking trade that came out of nowhere that was never any rumors for major people in the industry? This offseason, there hasn't really been much. I would guess Chris Jimenez would be that one this offseason. Biggest trade all time that nobody saw coming? I don't think this is necessarily a big trade, but all the names that were involved in it, the three-team aspect of it, the Jazz Chisholm trade that sent him from, or was it the D. Gordon trade? I can't remember if it was the three-team trade anyway, probably about 6-7 years ago, that had so many moving parts in it. I think it was Jazz Chisholm was a part of that deal. D. Gordon was a part of that deal, I want to say, that had the Miami Marlins in there. That was one of the more out-of-nowhere trades that kind of shook everything up. Changed everybody's priorities. Now, as far as a big name, out of nowhere trade, I can't really think of one off the top of my head, but that's one of the ones that I remember, watching at the winter meetings, just completely shaking up things for a bunch of different teams in free agency. Alrighty, so Peyton, thank you for joining us, everybody. If you guys are new here, hit that like and subscribe. Terry, Yankees should get Santander. They're actually not considering him, unfortunately. They have a pretty good outfield mix right now. They're going to have Dominguez, they're going to have Judge, and of course Bellinger in center. If you bring in a Hernandez at this point even, there's not really a spot for him unless you move Bellinger to center, or move Bellinger from center to first base. Maybe they miss on their first base targets and then they pivot and move Bellinger back to first base. Not out of the question, but I think they would prefer to bring in an infielder more than anything right now, primarily because Aaron Judge in right field takes a lot of wear and tear off of his legs, is going to keep him healthier in the long run, but they have not been connected to Santander. In fact, they've been specifically ruling him out because they don't see him as a fit there. Chris, Josh Donaldson trade 2014, that one did come out of nowhere as well, but for me, I guess that would be a major player trade. I guess we can consider that one. All right, let's see here. Try to keep up with your comments anyway. He can play first, okay, but they shut down the Bellinger will be playing in center, yes. Yankees will need DH for Stanton, true, and they need to keep Judge's legs fresh as he ages, true. They need to keep him in right field. Blue Jays are still suffering from the horrible trades 2 years ago. Blue Jays have made some aggressive moves in free agency and in trades over the last 5-6 years. Some of them have worked better than others. I would say the Springer contract hasn't aged well for them. I'd say some of the other contracts that they have on their books, like the Barrios deal, while it gives them a good number 3-4 type starter, isn't exactly what you were hoping that would be for at this point. I think you were hoping Barrios would have blossomed into a number 2 or a number 1 at this point, and it really hasn't worked out. You were unable to get a long-term deal done with Bichette or Guerrero, and those are kind of hamstringing you in your free agency right now. What's going on with Gunnar Henderson contract? I haven't heard too much there. No rumors that I've really heard out there. I'm sure they're trying to get a long-term deal done at some point. Trying to extend him. Think of Ronald Acuna and how valuable that contract is to the Braves. Probably still the most valuable contract on the books right now, even though he's missed roughly 2 years due to injury. The production that he gives when he is healthy is way overvalued for what his contract is actually worth. So Braves are still living off of that one. I think the Orioles would love to do something similar, but free agents and players are really realizing, the lost value that Acuna had, and agents are telling them, hey, just make it to free agency and we'll get you whatever you need. And you just kind of got to bet on yourself. And in the NFL, we see, a guy like Kirk Cousins go to free agency year after year after year and win in free agency. He's done really well financially for himself, one of the greatest earning quarterbacks in NFL history. Of course, he just got benched from Michael Penix, but you'd say he's maximized the most out of his value for being a fourth-round pick more than any other player in NFL history. Baseball players should take a page from his book financially if they're trying to reap the rewards. And you look at the money that's being thrown around in the game right now, even teams that are rebuilding that are not expected to spend in free agency, like the A's, like the Angels, are spending at the top levels of free agency for Severino, for Kikuchi. There is money in the game, so betting on yourself is not necessarily a bad bet anymore. The injury risks are not quite what they used to be. Injuries for pitchers are up, yes. Major League Baseball releasing a report that injuries are up about 150 or 200% anyway from what they were, say, 10 years ago, at least for pitchers, and they attribute that primarily to velocity. And that's just the name of the game right now. And you got to be willing to bet on yourself to maximize your free agent dollar. There is so much money in the game that even if you don't get a top end, contract, even say, getting to free agency and getting a 1 year, $8 million contract is still far better than just signing early in free agency and foregoing the ability to make those mega millions later on. So kind of, if you're able to bet on yourself, that's what agents tell you to do. Welcome in, Jonathan. Good afternoon. Before free agency, Bregman was looking like one of the top free agents out there. Why has there been steady decline? Is he looking for a big payday, but the market says otherwise? No, I think he's waiting for his market to really develop, and the Yankees were holding that up with their trade talks that they were interested in. I think he wants the Yankees in there. I think the Tigers, the Blue Jays, and the Red Sox were already ready to act, but he was waiting for the Phillies to possibly move on from Alec Boehm. Phillies are holding pat right now, so I wonder with the Yankees now entering the fray for Bregman a little bit more fervently if we finally see something happen before the end of the week. But I don't think it has anything to do with his demands contract-wise or otherwise, or anything about a decline. I just think, it was just the market factors of the Yankees being involved in other things that they were trying to push across the finish line, seeing how much money they had to work with the rest of free agency. And now that they figured out those things via trade, now they can prioritize those free agents that are out there. It's still only a week after the winter meetings, and so it's still, relatively early in free agency. They can still get something done, but it's not anything for as far as his demands. Hayden, I think Bellinger should play left, Dominguez play center, and Judge in right. Maybe, but I think that's generally going to be your outfield alignment. Dominguez, Bellinger, and Judge, with Judge for sure in right. Yankees have to move Stroman contact in order to bring in a big free agent. I don't think they need to do that either. I think they have the money to bring in a top-level free agent. I'm sure Hal Steinbrenner has conditioned you Yankees fans to believe that money's not a infinite resource. It's a finite thing. And while it is to some degree, the Yankees are one of 3-4 mega teams that can spend at the upper levels of free agency and not give a rip about the cost. And the Yankees continuing to cry poor and, get that seed planted in the Yankees' mind that, hey, we're the big bad Yankees, but finances matter. While that is true, them being restricted in their ability to sign a top level free agent because of the money is completely overblown. Never believed that in the Soto talks. Look at how much they were willing to go for Soto. Look at how much they're willing to go for these other players like Max Fried. They space out the money. They figure it out. That's the thing. You can always figure it out in free agency. And, for them to continue to cry poor, I just think is a little bit of a, foolhardy effort. They have enough money to figure these things out on their own. They don't need to do those things. So, I think Stroman should still finish the season with the Yankees. I think they need to keep him in that rotation to keep their depth. You move on from Stroman, maybe you go in free agency and solidify, another depth starter for them another way. But I don't think there's any reason they have to offload Stroman because of finances. I think they have enough money to do whatever they want to do in free agency. Varso trade wasn't bad, but the Teo trade was. True, but you're trading 1 year of Teo. I think the Varso trade for me was made strictly because of they're trying to get a little bit more, balanced in their lineup. When you make a trade for that reason and you're not getting equal value back, that's a mistake. I thought immediately the trade that we saw that sent Varsho to the Blue Jays and Gurriel and Moreno to the Diamondbacks was a win for the Arizona Diamondbacks. The reason why the Blue Jays made the trade was to get a little bit more balanced righty-lefty, not because of anything they saw on the baseball field. Sure, they were getting a nice piece back. They thought an ascending player on a cheap contract in Varsho. But you look at the trade, you had a better offensive weapon already in Gurriel. You had a very good long-term catcher option in Moreno that you decided to trade in exchange for Varsho instead of including guys that were going to hit free agency sooner, like Danny Jansen or an Alejandro Kirk that would have given you greater flexibility behind the plate. I thought it was already a loss of a trade right from the get-go, and that was before Varsho really regressed as a player the last couple of years. Let's see here. Springer, largest contract on the Jays, 6 for $150. Yeah, I mean, that's still more the instability that I was referring to. Let's see here. Trying to go through some of these other comments that you guys have. Royals and Angels make the playoffs. I think the Royals have a legitimate case to make the playoffs this year. Angels, I don't think there's any way they make the playoffs. I think they're a fourth-place team at best in their division. I love Ron Washington. I like the moves they're making, but no, they're not making the playoffs. Welcome in, Frankie. First time I think I've seen you message today. If you want to hit that like and subscribe if you are new here, we do appreciate it. Got over 175 people joining us since the beginning of the winter meeting. It's been a lot of fun chatting with you guys. Got in a bit late into the conversation. Where do you think Pete Alonso will sign? I still think the Mets, but there are other teams now checking in on his market. Again, the longer these things wait, the more teams will at least check in and just see if there's an opportunity. So I still think 6 for 180, 185 to the Mets. That's up from where my original projection was for 5 years at 135 to the Mets. But Rosenthal saying that the market might be up to 180 right now, and I believe him. I think his sources are pretty good on that. But the Yankees are at least kicking around the idea of Alonso along with a few other clubs as well. Anthony, there was a low-cost trade options in the bullpen for the Marlins. Any team who needs relievers could go get them, like Nordy or Cronin. There's a lot of relief options on the free agent market. There's some via trade, Ryan Presley as well. But if you're looking for low-cost options, yes, those are options there for the Marlins, Anthony. But yes, I agree, Angels are not making the postseason. Alonso to the Yankees, I wouldn't say there's a 0% chance of that, but I'd say it's less than, say, a 2 or a 3% chance. The Jays were hoping Barrios would be a number 2 starter, but he has been inconsistent. Very true. He's probably more of a number 4 with upside of a number 2 when he's right. Really good strikeout numbers, but he does give up the home run way too often. Henderson needs to get paid. He will. Chris, Orioles need to avoid the mistakes the Jays made with their 2 young stars. True, they need to try to get what the Braves have done with theirs and try to lock them up long term. But I think the Orioles also need to spend in free agency to add a number 1 starter to that rotation. They did bring in Corbin Burnes. They had to know what the numbers were going to look like when he hit free agency. Those numbers aren't vastly different from what they were a year ago, and yet they're willing to give up prospects for 1 year of Corbin Burnes, and now they're going to have to do the same thing to bring in a Castillo or a Cease if they don't re-sign Burnes. Sign them long-term early on. Yes, they need to. Gunnar Henderson ranked as the second best player in MLB right now. He would get paid. I'm not sure he's the second best player. I think he's probably the 1A, 1B with the best player on his team with Adley Rutschman probably being more valuable due to his position behind the plate, his impact with his stick at a offensively deficient position. I think keeps him right up there. But Henderson is still a very good player. I'm not saying he's not, but number 2 is a little bit high. Do you think Bregman wants to be a Yankee and he's just waiting to see what they will do? Does he want to be a Yankee? I don't think it's necessarily about the Yankees per se. I think he wants to be on a contending team, period, and very few teams offer that like the Yankees do. I think the numbers that he could get from the Yankees among other teams are going to be staggering when we finally see the contract come out. I think he's going to do very well in free agency. It's just a matter of him signing where he thinks he has the best chance to A, win, and B, get the money that he wants. I think that's what he's really looking for. Henderson is like a new George Brett. I could see that comparison. You see the Yankees bringing back Glaber. I think that ship has sailed. I think the inability to flex off of his position, kind of hurt his time there at the end with the Yankees. Yankees will need depth in Stroman. I do agree there. Blue Jays gave up a young catcher for Varsho. Yes, they did. And Jansen's now off of that club as well. You're left with Kirk and, whatever backup option they start the season with. They could have had Moreno. That could have been their long-term answer. I thought the option at the time would have been to trade Kirk, and they chose to go with moving on from Moreno instead. I thought that was a miss at the time, and it turned out to be a miss. Diamondbacks ultimately made the World Series with Moreno as one of their best players at catcher, and he showed he was able to handle the position at such a young age as well. Anthony, I think Springer contract great signing for the Blue Jays, but they didn't expect them to consistently be injured. True, injuries did hurt them quite a bit, but the Springer contract we knew at the time was going to age poorly. The first few years of that contract were what they needed to try to win, and they did well in those first few years. But now they're on the back half of that deal, and it looks like a negative investment at this point. Varsho, one of the best defensive outfielders in baseball at the time. Moreno wouldn't have played until this year. I don't think Moreno was already playing for them at that time. In bits and spurts, of course, they still had Jansen and Kirk, but Kirk would be a little bit more of a DH option for them at that time, and they were using Moreno sparingly at that time, with mostly Jansen handling the majority of the catching duties at that time. Varsho they thought would have been a great upgrade for them defensively in the outfield, and again they wanted to get more right-handed, left-handed. But again, at the time of the trade, I already knew it was a loss because they made the trade from that perspective. They were already giving away better offensive pieces in Gurriel. Defense was a little bit of a downgrade for the Diamondbacks, of course, but a stick offense is always going to be better than defense, essentially. So, as good as he was defensively, as young as he was, you're betting on the youth, him really being able to, grow as a player. And Varsho, if he had lived up to that expectation, might have made the trade an even one. But ultimately, you took a big risk moving one of the most valuable positions in the league at catcher, and a player who looked like he was going to be a good position or good spot for you there as well, a long-term answer for the Blue Jays. Ultimately, they make the move, and it ultimately was a loss of a trade for the Blue Jays. All right, Moreno was blocked, but yeah, trading Jansen would have made more sense. True, but I think Kirk would have made more sense as well. Rafe, welcome back. Just got on here. Any new rumors circulating? Not too many. We do see the Cubs are pivoting to relief pitchers right now. After moving on from Bellinger, that's going to be the first place they try to spend their money, but they need to improve that lineup as well. Burnes is still out there on the market, continuing to hang around, and the longer he hangs around there, the less and less likely he goes to the Giants. We'll see where he goes. Dodgers eventually could swoop in here if he continues to languish out there in free agency. Randy, Dodgers and Burnes are loosely connected. If he doesn't sign soon, Dodgers could do 3 for $135 with opt-outs. Burnes wants to pitch for the World Series champs. He is a California boy. I haven't heard too much about him being connected to the Dodgers per se, as far as a team that he wants to quote-unquote go to. I think he just wants a long-term deal with stability on a team that can compete. And the Giants are said to be one of those teams. Other teams that are still in the hunt are the Blue Jays and a mystery team. Who could that be? Red Sox, Rangers, Orioles, Dodgers. I think are the most logical teams as well. Lucas, I think the last domino to fall is Bregman. I think he will fall sometime by the end of the week. I would not be surprised with the Yankees now entering the chat for him more fervently. Chris, could the Jays sign Alonso, move Vlad to third to make a possible extension? I don't see that as a possibility. I think Alonso's going to sign with one of the two New York teams, more than likely. I would say the Mets are far and away the favorite for him. I would say they're going to get that one done. But it is an interesting idea that you proposed there, shifting Vladdy full-time to third base next year. Give other free agents, somebody to hope and pray on. Like we mentioned earlier in the video, possibly signing Santander or Provetta to show a long-term plan for their future. Alonso would make sense in that vein. Mike, Braves have been super quiet. True, they have roughly $15 million to spend. They're looking for corner outfield. They're looking for a starting pitcher, and then they're going to go cheap in the bullpen. Morton is, disappointed in the fact that the Braves haven't really been reaching out to him at all this offseason. I think they view him as a very, very, into free agency, hey, we haven't signed a starting pitcher yet option. Morton was hoping to end his career with the Braves, so a little bit disappointing that hasn't come across yet. Morton's still a good pitcher, but I'm sure that they were looking to do bigger things in free agency. Nathan Eovaldi comes to mind as well. Paranormal, welcome back. Just joining any moves today for the Yankees, any teams in general, or new rumors. I'm enjoying your show every day. Thank you, Paranormal, for joining us. If you guys are just joining us for the first time, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Really does help us out. Gained 175 subscribers since the start of the winter meetings. It's been great being able to join you guys and see how close we can get to that 2,000 mark before the end of the year. That's our goal. So if you wouldn't mind helping us out reach that goal, it really does help us out. I know a few of you guys have already sent some super chats. Thank you guys for supporting the channel as well. Let me see here. All right. But as far as rumors today, Yankees are pivoting a little bit to more free agents. Bregman seems to be the guy they're looking at right now. Walker. John Heyman has connected Nathaniel Lowe as a possible trade candidate to them as well for a first base spot. Christian Walker as first base as well makes a lot of sense. Other rumors, again, Cubs are looking at relief pitchers. And, Giants, still in limbo right now with Corbin Burnes. Blue Jays are looking at Pivetta. Willard, Chris, you think the Yankees make the playoffs without Soto because they have all the pitching in the world, but there's no guarantee they will have the same kind of offense from last year? I don't think they're going to they're going to go to the season with just the offense they have currently, Willard. I think they're going to add more pieces. I think they're going to add another first baseman. I think they're going to add another infielder like a Bregman. I think they're not done yet. I think they're still looking for at least one more impact bat and then another league average bat. So say you sign Bregman, that's your impact. Another league average or better with upside there would be Nathaniel Lowe trade. And then I'd say that's an A-plus offseason for them, even with losing Juan Soto. So I get I get that it's a work in progress and why you have your doubts, Willard, but they're still not done. They're doing bigger things. They're still going to add a reliever as well. Yankees are a playoff team. I still think they're a wild card team right now, as currently constructed, even if they don't make another addition. I think if they add another bat, an impact bat like Bregman, they're right there. Dodgers, I think they're going to be right there. I get what your point is, Willard, that you still have to play the games on the field. But for me, the Dodgers are far and away the best team in baseball. They're constructed the best, and they're still going to add. They may get Teoscar Hernandez done because his market supposedly is only 22 to 24 million. I was expecting his market would be around 28, 30 at the outset of free agency. Maybe 3 years is what the contract was expected to be. Still seems to be very similar as far as length, but the deal might be now in the range of what the Dodgers could afford. I thought the Conforto deal when they signed it said, hey, maybe we're not willing to go to the money for Teoscar, but with the numbers coming down on Hernandez from what I was expecting, tells me that maybe the Dodgers get both Conforto and Hernandez as well. Lucas, there was a list that came out yesterday. He ranked number 2 behind Shohei and ahead of Judge, Bobby Witt, Soto. Rutschman is 27. Yeah, I saw the list, but for me, I would rather have Bobby Witt at this point. He's already proven it and been able to show it at the major league level a little bit better. Judge is still in that conversation. Soto as well. I'd say Henderson is in that group of players. I'm not saying he's not, but to have him number 2 already, I think is primarily based on how young he is and how much you're expecting him to grow rather than what he's already shown at the big league level. He was playing at an MVP level for a period of time last year, but he still has the ups and downs like any player. And while he has the ability to play at an MVP level for stretches, I want to see it, at a little more consistent pace next season. He may very well be an MVP candidate next year, but for right now, I still think Shohei is by far the number 1 player in the sport. I think he's the best player we've ever seen in Major League Baseball history. And, that group of players that you mentioned there, Judge, Witt, Soto, Rutschman, I think he's in that group of players there. So he's still one of the best of the best of the best. Let's see here. Making the playoffs isn't guaranteed. There's nothing guaranteed in baseball. You still got to play the games. Injuries, just look at what the Rangers did, going to the World Series, winning it, and then last year, poor performance, injuries really restricted them. They didn't even make the postseason. Now, that was more of an outlier from a World Series champion team, but you can see how parity is really prevalent in the game on the American League side of things. On the National League side, I think it's really 4 or 5 teams that we guarantee a playoff spot to right now. We're talking about the Dodgers. We're talking about the Mets. We're talking about the Phillies. We're probably talking about the Braves and then the Padres. Whoever makes it out of the Central is going to be your division winner. And then you're talking about maybe the Diamondbacks cracking into that group as a team that might be on the periphery there. So, there's still a lot unknowns on the American League side. On the National League side, your behemoths are really the known factors. The Dodgers far and away the favorite. Phillies, Mets probably 2-3. Braves 4, depending on what they do with their rotation and corner outfield spot. And then the Padres as well. Very good at what you do. Thank you. Just enjoy the Yankees being a good team and enjoy Judge while he's still good, Willard. I agree there. They are a very good team, and we just need to enjoy some of these teams. I know we have our fan bases that we all cheer for. For instance, I cheer for the Rangers. I know, Willard, you cheer for the Houston Astros. There's a few Yankees fans that are in the chat. David, I know you're I think you're a Yankees fan if I remember, but while you cheer for your own team, you can still appreciate other players in the league. You still look at other players and say, hey, you'd be great in our team. Appreciate those guys. Appreciate the success they have elsewhere. Watching from Annapolis, welcome in. I think that's the first one we've had from Maryland. Hayden, what's your percentage on Yankees getting Bregman? Now that they've finished their pursuit of Tucker and Bellinger, I would put their pursuit at a 25% chance. I still think the favorite is one of the Red Sox, Blue Jays, or Tigers, but I think it's probably a 4-team race right now for Bregman. A sliver, like a 0.01% chance that the Phillies do something, because I think they're still looking to shake things up, but just haven't done it yet. But until they do, I'm not giving them any higher of a chance to bring in Bregman. Lucas, do you think the Rangers will win the AL, and why? The answer is yes, obviously. I still don't think the Rangers win the American League as currently constructed. They still need to repair their bullpen, so I'm not going to say they win the American League. I think the Mariners have the best rotation on the American League side right now, but they're going to have to dismantle that. They need hitting before I say they win the division, before I say they're even a wild card team. I'd say the Orioles are there, but they need to add a number one until Corbin Burnes is fully gone. I'd say they're probably right up there. Yankees are very good with that rotation. Right now, if I had to pick somebody, I'd probably lean the Yankees, but barely. They need to continue to improve that roster. I think the Rangers, once they solidify that bullpen, are going to be right there as well. I think Houston, making the moves they made, are one of the better teams in the American League as well. I don't think it's an obvious yes. I think the Yankees, for me, would be my pick right now if I had to pick a team, and that's because I believe the Yankees are going to get an impact bat. Meanwhile, the Rangers, while they've shown the ability to spend and get what they need to done, until they get a reliever at the top of the market, I'm going to hold back on my optimism for them. They've shown the wherewithal to go out for a starting pitcher. They've shown the wherewithal to go out for a pitcher or for a lineup addition, but they haven't spent under Chris Young for a bullpen addition. So until they actually do it, I'm going to reserve my optimism there. Let's see here. I'd like prime Mike Trout and the Babe over Ohtani. Ohtani, sorry, is the best player in baseball history as far as I'm concerned already. And I think he's only going to continue to add. I think Ohtani has done it at a better clip than what Babe Ruth ever did. Babe Ruth basically did one and then the other. He was never quite as effective at this at the same time as each other. Now, Ohtani has only done it once where he only did one and not the other. Babe Ruth did it over and over and over again. He was able to do it both ways, but he didn't really do it consistently at the level we've seen from Ohtani when he was with the Angels. Next year, when he's back pitching with the Dodgers, we'll see once again being able to do it on both sides of the ball at the same time. We're going to see it take him all the way to the World Series again, I do believe, on the National League side, unless the Mets or Phillies knock him off. But Ohtani, to me, is still the best player we've ever seen and that we will ever see in the major leagues. Prime Mike Trout over Ohtani. I'm sorry, when Ohtani came in, it was immediately Ohtani was the best player on that team, and we've seen the regression from Trout. Trout, when his heyday, was a very good player, but I would say Ohtani, even right now, is a better player than Trout was at his peak. David Lawrence, I'm not taking Ohtani over Trout last year because he didn't pitch. I mean, who was the MVP of the league? In a year he didn't pitch, and he didn't field. Just saying. Jonathan, to date, how does the AL and NL stack up against one another? Right now, I'd still say the behemoths are on the National League side. They're very top-heavy there. Dodgers, Phillies, and Mets are considered probably the heavyweights there, with the Braves following up there. The American League side is still a little bit more in flux, but I still think there's a chance for them to get a little bit higher. You said overjudge. Okay. I got you there, David. We're good. All right, let's kind of catch up with some of these comments anyway. D-backs can also sneak into the playoffs. True, that's why I put them on the periphery. But until they make an addition here that puts them over, say, the Padres, for instance, they're the third best team in that division at least. Maybe the Giants overtake them if the Burnes addition gets made. And that's why I'm holding back on my Diamondbacks optimism. I think the Padres are still a little bit better as currently constructed. Any chance you think the Angels get in on Burnes? No, I don't think he would sign there. I don't think he's looking to go to that organization. Even if they're willing to give him the money, I don't think he would sign there. Hayden, I feel like there is more time on Bregman, is still on the market, better the chance the Yankees get him. I get your point. The longer he's out there, maybe he goes to the Yankees, increasing the likelihood that he goes there. I would say that's more likely the case as well. The longer that he's out there, the Yankees could possibly get that one done. I think, the way the Yankees have gone about this, they prioritize Soto. They get that one done or not done. They go after, Fried as their next guy. Then they prioritize Williams. Then they prioritize Tucker. Then they prioritize Bellinger. Now they're prioritizing Bellinger, or prioritizing Bregman. They're just going down their list systematically, going after their list one by one by one, and not just putting one before the other. So they're not necessarily a multi-track thinking team right now. And with the Bregman being next on their radar, I think that one gets done a little bit quicker. So to your point there, the longer this one gets done, maybe the increases the chances that the Yankees get that deal done. Let's see here. Cohen and the Dodgers don't care about the luxury tax. Couldn't agree with you more. I don't think Hal cares anymore either. I would agree, but I think he tries to play the woe is me financial card a little bit too often in the public setting. Nobody is beating the Dodgers. You have to play the games, my friend. We saw injuries really riddle that team last year. And I think last year was a real chance any team could have beaten the Dodgers. Ultimately, the Dodgers still win the World Series in a year they're riddled with injuries. They're only going to get better. And this might be an even better LA Dodgers team this year than it was last year. But I still think you have to go on the field and play the game. There are a couple injuries away in that rotation from needing to make more additions at the deadline. They spent a lot of money on that roster already. And there are a few injuries away, just like any other team is, from having to solve those issues in free agency or in the trade market. And, there's always a chance a team catches fire. Maybe the Phillies finally figured out in the postseason. Maybe the Mets overtake them this year. But you have to go on the field and play the games. Let's see here. Judge is a great player, though. He absolutely is. Quickly, rosters currently stand, which team finish at the top of each division? You want my predictions on December 18th? These are subject to change with acquisitions and whatnot. But as it currently stands, I would say Yankees win the AL East, Guardians in the Central. I'm really tempted to say the Royals, but I got to see how that India acquisition works for them. But I like the Guardians a little bit more. I would probably say the Rangers currently, even with their bullpen as it currently stands, I think that rotation and their lineup is going to be better. And they're going to figure out something to do in that bullpen. I think the Astros are going to be right there. Mariners, I don't think have enough offense, even with the best rotation they've ever had in franchise history, to be better than the Rangers or Astros. And I think they're going to be a little bit of a downgrade currently in Houston after losing Kyle Tucker, losing Bregman, Verlander kind of having his downs there. So I'd say the Rangers, for me, are the favorite there. On the National League side, Dodgers are the obvious winners in the NL West anyway. In the Central, I like the Cubs, but I'm still going to go the Brewers until proven otherwise. I want to see it on paper. I want to see what additions the Cubs make to the rest of that lineup and to that bullpen. But as currently constructed, I would say the Brewers are a more complete team, and I'm expecting them to still get better. And they've solved some of their issues that they had going into the year. We knew they needed rotation help. They bring in Cortez. Not saying that addition is better than Kyle Tucker, but I'm saying they're a more complete team as currently constructed, with a caveat that the Cubs still probably have more work to do if they bring in Luzardo, make a major acquisition in the bullpen, add another piece to their lineup. And then the NL East, probably one of the most contentious divisions as currently constructed. With the rotation the way it is for the Mets, I'm still going to say the Phillies. Even though they need a shakeup once they get to October, they're still a great team for 162. Love the Braves. They're going to get Acuna back, but they need some help in that rotation for me. And so that's why I think they're going to finish third in the division as currently constructed. If the Mets add Manaea, if they add Walker Buehler, I think the Mets probably win the division. But as currently stands, I would say the Phillies win the NL East. As far as my World Series pick on December 18th, I'd say the Dodgers probably on the NL side, just on paper anyway, barring injuries. They're probably still the favorite. On the American League side, I'd probably say the Yankees. Second, if I had to pick a second team currently, I'd say the Phillies probably figure a way to get to the World Series and figure out their issues in the postseason. As currently constructed, maybe it's the Mets if they get Manaea. But I'd probably say the Phillies are the second pick there if I had to pick one. And then on the American League side, I'm going to pick my Rangers. I just don't trust the Guardians to be able to perform at the highest levels the way a guy like Corey Seager could, a guy like Jacob deGrom when healthy could, or a Nathan Eovaldi. I think the Orioles aren't going to have it. But we'll see. But I'd say the Yankees and Dodgers as currently constructed. Good move for the Orioles still to have to get a number one and maybe a bullpen arm also. Welcome in, John. I do agree Sugano was a good move for them, but they do need to bring back Corbin Burnes. Let's go ahead and flip over to X and just kind of check in on some of the headlines now that we are almost to the 1 o'clock hour Central Time. See if anything is happening at the moment. White Sox adding a former Atlanta Brave prospect, Bryce Wilson, who was with the Brewers, I believe, last year. 1 year, $1 million contract. Good get for them. He could be a guy they could use in the bullpen and then flip at the deadline. I like that signing for them. He's going to compete for a spot in the rotation as well. I like that even better. Alrighty. Scroll down here a little bit, see if anything else is happening. Does not look like it. Alrighty. Flip over to MLB trade rumors. Logan Allen. Nothing else really happening there. Alrighty. If you guys want to hit that like and subscribe, we'll be back live with you guys this evening around 7, 8 o'clock, updating you guys. Hopefully we'll have an acquisition of Burnes. Hopefully we'll have another trade to discuss now that the winter meetings are over. Teams have had a very slow weekend to kind of regroup and calibrate themselves again. Sugano's come off the board now. It sounds like things are starting to move a little bit more positively in directions for Bregman and Burnes from the standpoint that the market is really held up by them. When the market is held up by those guys, usually you start to see some movement on those guys. So we'll see what ultimately happens. Welcome in, Ethan. I think this is the first time I've seen you in the chat today. Welcome in, welcome in. Bold prediction, next move for the Rangers this offseason. It's not bold, but they're going to add a bullpen piece. I'd say a bold prediction would be guaranteeing that they get Corbin Burnes. I don't think that happens either, but the longer he stays out there, the likelier and likelier I think it is going to be a possibility. David, if Trout goes to the Phillies, would that be a great move? No. There's going to be too much that have to be eaten by the Angels. They're not going to do that. I don't see the Angels moving him, even if they wanted to, because the money is going to be so lopsided in that type of a trade. I think he ends up his career finishing there with the Angels unless he finishes out that contract and then after his deal is over, signs with somebody. But I don't think there's a trade that I see working for the Angels or for whoever might acquire him. I think he's going to be an Angel until the end of that contract at the very least. Alrighty, well, appreciate you guys joining us. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for the super chats out there. If you want us to make sure we get your comment, make sure you guys send that super chat if you just want to support the channel as well. Really does help us out. So thank you guys again for joining us. Gained over 175 subscribers in the last week and a half alone since we started our coverage of the winter meetings. We're going to be live with you guys every single day, every evening, updating you guys on the latest from the MLB hot stove season. And be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Follow us over on X at Upside Ascend and on Facebook at Upside Sports Network. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you guys later on this evening. Y'all have a good one.